That is done on faith. What you just heard is completely done on faith. There's no music. There was no music in front of him. He never had a chart to look at. He just set out, I'm going to learn this. And so he had faith that he could do that because his faith muscle is exercised in that area. Today's talk is based on faith. And it's based on the story of the mustard seed. And what did I call the talk? Don't judge a seed by its size. You should have seen the talk I originally came up with. That was I looked at it and said, what was I thinking to put this in print? And I will not tell you what it was, and you come to me privately, and I'll tell you, I will not say it on a microphone or on a video. I was like, oh my goodness. Kenneth called, I called Kenneth, I said, he said, did you mean to have this talk title? I was like, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? Oh, now you're curious, aren't you? You'll come to me, I cannot say it on the microphone. You'll come to me privately, and I will tell you. And so, to think about the mustard seed, now most people think that the mustard seed is the smallest seed, but it actually isn't. But Jesus used it as an example to say a tiny package can grow into something enormous. And our seeds, of course, can. The seeds we plant in our mind, the seeds that we're planting, and most seeds, you plant them and they grow, correct? So what are you planting? You're planting within your current faith structure. And faith can go either way. I remember years ago I was in a meditation with Olga Butterworth, and we all got a prayer request or whatever you call it beforehand. And one person said, Olga, I know that fear is the opposite of faith. But and she said, oh, no. Fear is not the opposite of faith. Fear is faith. It's faith in what you're afraid of. Thank you. I got backup. It's faith in what you're afraid of. So, see, we're never going to get more faith. So, I just need more faith. No. We have all the faith we're ever going to have. But which direction do we send it? Where are we planting our seeds of faith? Without, especially unconsciously. You know, Jack and the Beanstalk just throwing his beans everywhere. And we're just randomly tossing our seeds around, not having no consciousness that it will bloom and grow where you plant them. And so, we come to unity, we come to new thought, to become willing to have new thoughts. Clearly, it is a process. Clearly, we don't come here already baked. We come here half-baked. We come here with ideas, wishes, hopes, thinking, I know it has to be possible to think differently. It has to be possible to see differently than I am if I am not in alignment, if I'm off balance, even if I think it's everybody else's fault that I'm like this. We walk up those steps on a Sunday morning, we read the books, we have conversations with each other because we have this much faith that peace is possible, that joy is possible, that an awakening is possible. Now, some of us think, I can come here so I can learn how to fix that person. I come here, I go to 12-step meetings, I go to Al-Anon, I go to wherever, so I can fix somebody else. And then, at some point, somebody tells us, and often it's me anymore, it seems like, who tells somebody, look at yourself. If you want to change the world, shift yourself. Replant your seeds of faith. Replant. Several years ago, there was a woman who came here, and she had a stepfather who was quite ill for a very long time. And she called me on a Sunday and said, I can't come today, Shawn, but would you say a prayer for my stepfather? And we hung up. I said, oh, sure. But I thought about it. We said a prayer for her that day. that she could see herself in truth. Because once she saw that, then she could look at him in truth. Because otherwise she was just going to look at a sick person and affirm sickness. Because you see, a lot of us at this current juncture, our faith is in sickness. We have a great faith in illness. We have a great faith in poverty. We have a great faith in lack. We have a great faith that we are under attack. We have a great faith that somebody or something is out to get us, and we have to be ready to attack first, if not second. There's a great faith. The seed has been planted. And a lot of us don't even know that, oh, God is wonderful. God is love. God is, except for. And it's that except for that's bringing us down. You know, there's only one power and one presence as the universe and as my life, God the good, except for my mother, my father, politicians, money, my body. You know, there's exceptions to the good that God is. There's exceptions to life. There's exceptions to love in our mind, in our faith. And what we're coming here for is to shift our faith over to fewer and fewer exceptions until there is no exception to love. There is absolutely no exception to love. And it's hard to shift that faith over when we're under attack all the time. Food is trying to attack me. Oh, it's in that kitchen now, waiting to get me. There's some gluten waiting to sneak in and get me. There's carcinogens out there, and they hate me. Eggs are mad at me. Coffee's mad at me. You know, chocolate's mad at me. And it wants to get me. You know, often people go into 12-step fellowships for substances, and they hear over and over again, this disease wants you dead. It's hard to embrace a fellowship and a program that tells you that, doesn't it? That you're under attack. I say that no, there's no disease that wants me dead. Absolutely everything wants to serve me. And I learned that in 12-step fellowship. I learned that actually on my knees praying in a hotel room in Atlantic City about cigarettes. And I heard very clearly, as God is for me, nothing could be against me. Nothing. But wait a minute, they tell me cigarettes want to hurt me. They told me that alcoholism wanted to hurt me. Alcohol just wants... And I thought, you know, a drink never jumped off a shelf and poured itself down my throat. And a cigarette has yet to get in my mouth and light itself. I reached out for these things because I felt they could serve me to survive, actually. I reached out to this stuff because I had no other tools. And in that realization, in that hotel room in Atlantic City, I realized, oh, I am loved by these things. I'm absolutely loved. I was a couple of years sober at that point. And I am loved by these things. And all they ever want to do is serve me. But I had to let the cigarettes know that I was going to let them go. Because I no longer needed them to serve me. I had new tools. Not just to survive, but to thrive. I had new understanding, and I had a new faith, a renewed faith. My faith had gone in a new direction, that I needed something to get me through this moment. Not my life, but this moment. And I needed about 60 of them a day to get through moment after moment after moment after moment. And as I developed a new prayer life, surrendering over to the God of my understanding, I planted seeds of love that kept growing and growing and growing and advancing. And I loved the crops. I loved the crops so much of this renewed faith, of this expanded faith in my good. That's why I thought, oh, I'm willing to put down the cigarettes now, because they're not enhancing this crop. They're not fertilizing love. They're not fertilizing the joy that I'm promised now. I was promised by people joy. I was promised freedom. I was promised things. I was promised that God had better things in store for me than anything I could ever imagine. And all I had to do was face over and follow certain principles. Well, it's harder than it seems, but it's simple. It's simpler than you could ever imagine. And I did imagine some pretty wild things when that tall man stood in the front of the room and promised me these things. But see, what I couldn't imagine at that point was serenity. I could surrender. What the heck? I thought if I got all the stuff in the world, then I could be serene. But it turns out it's the other way around. I don't know about you. Yes, I do know about you. I talk to you people. But I'm certain about me. I keep thinking, if I can change the world or fix the world, if what I perceive as broken, that I will then be happy, and we can all be happy. Once the world itself is fixed, once I repair every crack in every sidewalk, let's say, then we're safe to walk down the street. Once I get you to stop thinking the way you're thinking and them to stop thinking the way they're thinking, once I do all that, then we're free. But no, that's not how it works. It's an inside job. And I must keep redirecting my faith to what I know darn well is true. I have to keep redirecting my faith. And that I know we are all in this room in agreement on. Every single one of us. How do I know this? You wouldn't be here otherwise. You know it's an inside job. What you don't know is how simple it is, some of you. You don't know how simple, not easy, simple the inside job is. And if we all followed the still small voice that is pressing, urging us onward, not with guilt, but with love and with wisdom, that inside voice is not saying, you idiot. No, the inside voice does not say that. It's like last week, or 2 weeks, was it last Friday? I can't remember anymore. When I was in such pain over the shingles thing, and I heard the voice that said, Shawn, it's all about forgiveness. This pain, your unforgiveness, has physicalized in your jaw and in every nerve ending in the right side of your mouth that's shooting in flames into your brain. I don't want to complain, but but I heard clearly, this is about unforgiveness. Shawn, and who are you to think that you can hold unforgiveness in any part of your life, your spirit, your body? And it's like, oh man, but. And I'll tell you, I held on to that. I've been holding on to that unforgiveness the same way I held on to cigarettes for a long time, as if it would comfort me, as if it would lead to peace, as if it would give me some sort of good. And so this week, I've been working on the experience of forgiveness. I've been doing as I am guided by the still small voice, by these instincts which run rampant in me. And I told you last week that what I first did was I put the body over here and what I felt they did over here. Or not what I felt, but what I perceived they did over here. Because that's all it ever is a perception. Nobody ever actually did what we think they did. But because we think we think we know the motive for which they did it. But if you put the body here, and then I put the behavior over here, then I could start looking at that, and I no longer had to hate the body. I no longer had to combine the very being with the behavior, because I don't want to be judged for all my behaviors as if that's all that I am. David knows me from way back when I did not have the nicest reputation. I'll tell my perceptions, thank you. And so to begin to separate the body from the behaviors, because the behaviors are all about perceptions. I can't know the motives of others. I don't know my own motives half the time, let alone some. I'll tell you what my motive is. It's to be safe because I think I'm in danger. That's usually what it is. And if you grew up in my house, which many of you did, in one way or another, emotionally, then you would understand this. So, to do that, this week I began writing a letter to someone. And I have to laugh. One person that I've really been holding out on, and I found Over years, I can think of every awful thing they've done to me or someone else. But I was sitting talking with a minister friend of mine the other day, and I said, every seemingly awful thing he has done has made my life better. Every single one, not one truly hurt me. There was divine guidance in every bit of that relationship, and I've been holding a grudge, a heavy-duty resentment-filled grudge, for years, taking a little pleasure every time I found out he failed in some way. Every time I found out that he was being punished by the universe in some way, or his own foolish behavior. And taking a little bit of pleasure. And it's like, to sit down this week and realize, oh my gosh, David's in my life because of this person. I'm a full-fledged minister because of this individual who rejected me right and left. And if he hadn't done that, if he hadn't divinely done that, I would have had a very different, much more limited life. And so I can be grateful. I don't know that the letter I could send him is, thank you for every awful thing you have done. My life is fantastic. How's yours? I don't think that's the solution there of amends making. But to begin the process of the experience of forgiveness. For me, many of them do not happen just like that. It's like Myrtle Fillmore, Unity's co-founder. She had a realization with her tuberculosis that she had been diagnosed with and given 3 months to live. I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness. Beautiful. That's where her healing happened. It took 2 years of continuous prayer to complete the process where there was no illness that could be found in her body. And so, for many of us, we may have an instantaneous healing in our willingness, in our perceptions, but sometimes it takes these bodies longer to catch up. For some of us, I believe that every single person in this room could play what David just played. What I also believe is that there may be only one of us in this room that is willing to exercise the muscle. But how many of you have sung when you thought you could never sing? How many of you have walked into what I'll call a confrontation and come out peacefully? I was talking to someone just the other day about not every confrontation is coming in with your dukes up. There are gentle, compassionate confrontations. There are loving confrontations, but it's still confronting the issue with the motive of solution. And the solution isn't always, you have to change in order for us to be happy. The solution is, God is here, and I'm willing to know love. Now show me what love looks like in this situation, God. Because clearly, love isn't always nice. Clearly. But it's always loving if we pay attention. So your faith, my faith, our faith. Faith is not religious. Faith is practical. In the 12 powers, the power of faith, it sits right in the middle of the brain, and it is our yes power. Faith is what we are saying yes to for now. Remember, hope is about the future. Faith is about right now. And with what I'm saying yes to, that's the seed I'm planting in my body. That's the seed I'm planting in my relationships. It's the seed I plant in my talents. It is the seed that I plant that, another example of it takes a time. I moved to New York in 1985, October of 1985, and I went to work at Don't Tell Mama, and I saw those performers every night on stage, and I thought, I want to be one of them. 30 years later, I did it. 30 years later, I was no longer afraid to do it. 30 years later, I thought, I believe that I can try this and see what it feels like and see what the results are. It took 30 years to realize I had nothing to lose. Nothing. But I wanted to know what it felt like. I'm not better than anybody because I get up on stage. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm doing what I really, really love to do. Somebody asked me about, how do you do this every week? How do you get up on this pulpit every week? And I said, well, I like doing it. He said, but how do you tolerate criticism? I said, sometimes well, sometimes not very well. But it's objectification in many ways, no matter if they like you, if they don't like you. But I'm doing what I love to do, which is I get to talk about this stuff. I get to talk about the principles that I love, the principles that I believe in with all of my heart when I remember to practice them. And then, on Sunday afternoon, sometimes I can forget, Monday afternoon, Tuesday, but then sometimes I get a reminder. I get shingles in my face to remind, oh, Shawn, you still have to be a practitioner, not just a preacher. And then you'll get another story to preach with. Faith. I'm going to read one quick thing for you. Comes from Luke chapter 13 in the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the New Testament. Where'd you go? Okay. How does one come to know the peace and joy of God? I tell you, it is not through worry and effort. Are you clear on that? It is not through worry and effort of your old ways. Sit down and relax with me. One comes to know the peace and joy of God by listening to me as a small child who is eager to learn and listens. And then, just as that child does, by trying everything that the guidance asks. But if you watch a child when it is learning something new, you will notice that the learning itself does not seem to come from the child's effort. The practice is but an expression of the child's willingness to learn. The learning itself seems to come upon the child like a miracle, and suddenly the small child can do what it could not do before. We are guided to become as a little child to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. Meaning, it is all that little stuff that awakens us to what we thought was big, and it just becomes a wonderful way of life. Don't judge a seed by its size. Become willing to know that every thought planted is a seed. So consider your seed packets. Consider what you wish to garden. Consider that perhaps you'll sacrifice a whole garden of weeds for a garden of love. That's what we have to say today. Let's listen to David.